Hey there, everybody. Today I'm going to be starting a series on how to build your team from scratch. So, this is going to be you're just starting out your organization, you just started the save up, and this is what I personally do to build a successful team from the get go. And what I would recommend to all of you guys to try out as well. So, the first thing that we're going to go over, and in my opinion, the first thing that you absolutely have got to do is go over your personnel, your major league personnel, and make sure you've got some good options available. So the first thing you're going to see is that you've got a couple of different positions. There's the assistant general manager, the bench coach, the pitching coach, the hitting coach, the first and third base coaches, the scouting director, and the team trainer. So you're probably wondering what each of these personnel is responsible for and how they're going to impact your organization. So that's obviously going to affect what you're looking for. Your assistant GM is kind of just going to help you out with stuff. Now, I don't personally think that this helping out is very useful, even if you're new to the game. Essentially, what they're going to do is they're going to look for players who might be good fits for your team and say, hey, maybe we should trade for this guy every now and then. They don't generally do too good of a job for that, and they'll give you feedback on your potential trades, but I don't think they're too good at that either. So, yeah, we'll come back to them. Bench coaches, and I'm also going to go over managers here. I currently have this in GM and manager mode, but managers, if you're in or GM only mode, are going to be important to know about as well. Managers are going to be responsible for your running your team on game day. So they're going to be strategizing. They're going to be designing your lineup, your pitching staff. They will set all of that themselves. This could make your job easier as a GM if you have a manager only, and I do recommend new players do GM only so they have the opportunity to lessen their responsibilities, at least at the start, and give that to the computer to handle. But what you're looking for in a manager is a manager who has strategies that you like. You're looking for a manager who's going to help develop your players as well, since they're going to be pretty responsible for your players' development. So we're going to come back to that. Bench coaches are like managers, except they don't really run your team. So you're just looking for bench coaches who are going to be good at helping your players develop. Another important thing to note about bench coaches is this staff cohesion over here on the staff roles page is going to be somewhat important in how effective your staff is at their jobs overall. So you want to try to get that up, and the bench coach is a critical position for that. You want a bench coach who's going to have good cohesion with the rest of your staff if you can. Assistant GM can also be used for that, but we'll get back to that later. Your pitching coach is going to be teaching your pitchers essentially all of their pitching skills between their stuff, movement, and control. Their development and decline over time is going to be influenced, at least in part, by your pitching coach. So it's important to have a good pitching coach so that your pitchers have good development and do not decline later in their careers. Your hitting coach is going to be responsible for hitting tools. So it's essentially the same thing as your pitching coach, but for hitters. So they're going to be responsible for the development of all the different hitting tools and the player's overall batting skills in terms of that development. They're going to help that out along the way. Now, your pitching coach and hitting coach are not solely responsible for that. Your manager has some influence. Your bench coach has some influence, of course, and there's just some that's just randomized by the computer. But having good hitting and pitching coaches in their respective categories will help you to keep your players developing and overall just talented. Your first and third base coaches are going to be responsible for game day base running decisions. So, do we send this runner from third base to try to score on a play? Do we send the runner to second? Are we going to try to steal? That kind of thing. Although the stealing is more on the manager's side, so that's not really as big of a factor with these guys. But what you are going to be looking for in addition to that is this teach catching infield, outfield, and to a lesser extent base running. Your first and third base coaches are going to be responsible for teaching your players defensive skills, trying to improve your defense overall, and teaching your players how to run the bases more effectively. Your scouting director is going to look at players and they will give you their personal views on them. So your ideal scouting director is just going to take the ratings in the editor, which you can't see with challenge mode on, and translate those to your whatever scale you're using for your scouting. But essentially, that's ideal since it's going to tell you exactly what the player looks like. It's going to tell you exactly what their talent is. Bad scouts are going to mix in some other things as well or distort the ratings so you're getting an unclear view or an inaccurate view even of what your players look like. So basically, the ideal scout is just going to be better at telling you what the talent level of a player is. And last, but certainly not least, is the team trainer, who's going to be responsible for keeping your players healthy, helping them recover, and be able to play more often between games. So all of these are important, and we're going to go down this list to give you guys an idea of what you're going to be looking for in a hire for each of these positions. So first is the assistant general manager. And as I said earlier, I don't really think this is an important position. If everything is good in your organization, what I like to use this for is as a storage position with quotations around that. So what I mean by that is, let's say you've got an outstanding hitting coach. He's got legendary teach hitting, but maybe he's a little bit more favoring of veterans. And there's a legendary hitting coach on the free agent market who's better at teaching prospects, and you've got a young team, so you want to bring him on. Well, you don't want to fire your hitting coach because he's an excellent hitting coach, and if something happens to your other guy, you want to have him available. So you just move your current hitting coach to the general manager position, and then you hire the hitting coach off the free agent market to be your new hitting coach. So that's what we're going to use this general manager position for. I don't actually have anyone on the staff that I'm particularly inclined to keep, so we could just leave Mike Hazen for now in this position. As for your manager position, what we're going to be looking for, and obviously I don't have it here, is players that have managers that have strategies that you like or don't absolutely hate. They don't have to be ideal. It's not going to cost you too much, but you want a manager with good strategies, at least decent strategies. And what you're looking for is the highest possible player development abilities and overall mechanical change as well. So sorting by development, which is generally what I'm going to do when I'm looking for a manager, we've got Bruce Bochy and Buck Showalter are both legendary in both development and mechanics. Handle aging, which is the third most important thing. It's a distant third, but it's still relatively important, especially if you're running a more veteran team. That's legendary for Showalter and a little bit lower at outstanding for Bochy. So these guys are both going to be outstanding at helping their players develop and maintain their skill level. That's great. We really like that. So taking a look at Showalter, he is very aggressive at stealing, at hit and run, and at bunts. So if you've got a speedy team, Showalter is going to be more likely to be the guy you'd go for as your manager off the free agent list. You've also got Bruce Bochy here. He's a more neutral player overall. He's going to have relatively normal tendencies with his strategy. So if you're looking for a neutral guy, Bochy might be your preference. And yeah, so these two guys are going to be your primary targets in looking for a new manager. By the way, I should also specify, when you are starting up a game, unless you have an outstanding person at every single personnel position, you want to be replacing your staff. It is so important to have a good staff that you absolutely have got to go out of your way, at least for your major league level, to hire the best guys possible on day one. So next up, we've got bench coach, and it's the same thing as manager, except it doesn't really matter for their strategies since they're just going to be helping your players develop. Although, once again, there is that aspect of it that's more staff role based with the cohesion. So we'll come back to them later to make sure we could get somebody so that we at least do not have a feuding staff. Next up is hitting coach. And what we're looking for here is that teach pitching to be high. That's the only thing we care about here. Now, it is also notable that we want to try to get a coach that's better at teaching prospects, and we want to get a coach that is at maybe not power pitcher focused, because I don't think that's particularly important at the major league level, but it's not the end of the world if we get one. We're just looking for the best pitching coach possible, and those two things will be tiebreakers. Now, you're going to hear me saying you want to favor prospects a lot, and I'm going to quickly explain that just so you understand now and in the future why that is. So first of all, Your players in their prime, which I would consider in OATP to be generally about 26 or 27 years old to 31, maybe 32 years old, they're not going to be improving their skills very much at all. So even with a favor veterans pitching coach, you're still not going to see too much of a boost there. And your older players, sure, it'll help them decline more slowly, but at that point, you're really not going to keep them around much longer anyway, unless they're extremely talented. But that's a very small minority, and it's not really worth bringing in a pitching coach for one player when you're looking at the whole team. Furthermore, your prospects are actually in need of development. When you're bringing up a young pitcher, it's critical that they actually get the skills they need to be a complete player at the major league level. So you're going to be looking at getting the favor prospects guys because they're going to help out your young players, which should be a part of every team. There should be no team not constantly bringing up at least some young players. And favor veterans is just not going to help your team out that much in general. So let's take a look at some possible staff options. And we're just going to sort by teach pitching since that's the most important thing. So we've got a handful of really outstanding options here. So what I'm going to notice here is that we got Bryce Benz, who is actually not a bad manager if we need him in that role. Miguel Centena, who's a great across the board. He's not a bad manager. He's an outstanding hitting coach in addition to being a great pitching coach. Don Cooper's pretty much exclusively a pitching coach, so we'll have to keep that in mind. We got John Pharrell. He's also an outstanding manager. And Matthew Johnson, also an outstanding manager, also an outstanding base coach, and he can teach hitting quite well as well. So we've got plenty of options here. The first thing I'm going to notice is Centena and Pharrell are significantly younger than everybody else. Pharrell is 58 and Centena is 56. We want to try to get staff who are not going to retire too early in joining us. We want to keep our talented staff around for as long as possible. So these two guys I'm going to favor. But Centena is legendary teach hitting, so we could consider him for that role on our team instead. So I think I'm going to go here with John Pharrell instead, since he's going to be also quite versatile. He could be a manager if we need him to, but he's going to be an outstanding pitching coach. Ooh, actually, we see here that he is not too favoring prospects. So in that case, I want to take a quick look at some of our other options. So Bryce Benz isn't too old, and he's got some other things. He's a little bit better with prospects, but not quite where I want it to be. Don Cooper is much better at teaching prospects, and he's still not that great. He also favors hitting very strongly, which has me a little concerned. And last, we got Matthew Johnson, and this is actually what we're going to end up doing. We're going to hire Matthew Johnson, who very strongly favors prospects. I like that a lot. And of course, he's got those solid managing techniques too, so we could possibly employ him later as a manager in the minor leagues if we want to be an excellent player in that role. So for our pitching coach, we're going to sign to a 5-year deal. I'm going to drop the average annual value a little bit. He's likely to accept a deal cheaper than what he's asking for here. If he doesn't, it's unlikely he's going to sign with anyone else in that time, so we can find some bigger money for him. But in the meantime, we want to save just a little bit of money on him. So next up is hitting coach, and it's the same thing as the pitching coach. We're just looking for the best hitting coach available, best teach hitting, and if we can find someone who favors younger players better, great. So we got Joey DeMont, who's 52. That's great. We love the young guy. He's also a pretty solid manager. And, of course, Miguel Centena. So Centena here does not really favor prospects too strongly. That's disappointing. But he is legendary at both teach hitting and teach pitching, and that versatility makes him valuable. The problem with DeMont here is that he is even worse at teaching prospects, which is a problem. So we're going to go with Centena. We'll keep DeMont in mind later if we have a job at some other level that we could potentially be interested in hiring somebody else for. But for now, we're just going to go with someone else. Next up on our list, we've got our first and third base coaches. So as you remember, I mentioned that they are responsible for teaching defense and also teaching base running. So that's what we're going to be looking for here in our first and third base coaches. We can find some guys who are really going to be able to help our defense succeed. That's going to be outstanding. So we're going to sort here by teach catching, which to me is the absolute most important thing to have. And we've got here Scott Austin. He's young. He's also a hitting coach if we need him to be. He's not a terrible manager either. So overall, this guy just looks outstanding. He favors prospects very heavily. This is pretty much ideal. He's going to have a great time training our young players to be outstanding on defense. So we will hire him as our first base coach to a 5-year deal. And that's another thing. Make sure you're signing guys to 5-year deals so you get the most time out of them possible at their high level of performance. And also make sure you're extending them before they hit free agency. Okay, for some other options here, we've got Jimmy Gonzalez. He's also really good at in-game running, which is actually pretty important for a third base coach as a tiebreaker here. That puts him above everybody else. We can have Scott Austin actually teach the running and have Jimmy Gonzalez teach, for example, infield and outfield. Austin teaches catching and running. So we'll go with Jimmy Gonzalez here. He also very strongly favors prospects, which is great. That means that he's going to be able to help our younger players develop. And he's quite young, too. So both of our first and third base coaches are going to be with our organization for a long, long time. All right, and now we are on, I believe, to our scout. So with the scouting director, what we're looking for is somebody who's going to give us the most accurate possible vision of each player. We want somebody who's going to translate the ratings in the editor directly to ratings on the displayed scout page. So we're looking for somebody who's going to scout amateurs pretty well. That's going to be important when we're looking at the draft and such. We also want the international to be pretty good and the minors to be strong in particular. And we're looking for highly favored tools. That is extremely important. Anything less than highly favored tools will actually use some, oddly enough, statistics in their scouting report. You can see the statistics yourself and use those to judge players, but you don't want them mixed into your scouting report since that's just going to give you a distorted view of how good the player actually is. My go-to scout is generally either Michael Hill, who's got excellence across the board and a good, or RJ Harrison, who also has excellence across the board and good. This is in the highly favored tools category. We absolutely have got to have that. And RJ Harrison is going to be, oops, wrong button, a huge part of our organization as we look to get the most accurate reports possible on all of our players. And last but not least, we've got the team trainer. This is going to be the person who's responsible for our players recovering from injury, recovering from fatigue, and also preventing injury, which is going to be incredibly important. So what we're looking for in particular, I'd like to sort by fatigue recovery since I don't want my players getting tired too quickly. I want my players recovering really quickly. And we're looking primarily at this prevent arm injury list since this is going to be a big part of the injuries you're going to see players suffer. And we see here we've got Rick Jameson, who is legendary at preventing arm injuries. Conveniently enough, he's also good or better at everything else, outstanding at preventing leg injuries. That's very good. And he's pretty good at rehabbing too. So overall, Jameson's going to be an outstanding trader. He's certainly my go-to option for the job. We're going to sign him to a contract. All right, and now we're going to come back to bench coach. So as I said earlier, we want to make sure we're getting good staff cohesion. So let's just take a quick look at our staff roles and see how our guys are getting along. It looks like our scouting director and trainer aren't going to do too well, but it's not going to be a huge problem. Mike Hazen, our assistant GM, works pretty well with a good portion of our staff. What we have is a lot of personable guys. So ideally, oh, I see. We've got our offers out. This is really what we should be looking at here, our offers. So our trainer is going to be personal. That's what we have now. Our scouting director is still going to be personal as well. Our first base coach is going to be easygoing. Our third base coach is normal, controlling, temperamental. We're going to have two normals and two personables. So we want a bench coach who ideally works well with one of those. We do not want one who struggles with those. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal whatever we go with because I think overall we got a team that's going to have some decent ability to be cohesive, essentially. So it's very unlikely that either of these guys are going to accept a gig as the bench coach, but we're going to give it a try anyway. So Bruce Bochy, or actually this is Buck Showalter, he works well with temperamental, which is one of the things that we were looking at, so that's good. He's also a normal personality. We've got some normal personalities. Bruce Bochy, he works well with personable, but he struggles with temperable. So Buck Showalter is going to break that tie overall. I think Bochy's probably the slightly better manager, but Buck Showalter is going to work better with our staff, and that's what we're really looking at here. So we're going to see if Buck Showalter is willing to be hired as our bench coach here, and it looks like he will indeed take a contract. So now we've built our major league coaching staff, and as soon as all of these guys have signed with our organization, we can get started on other things. And I'm serious, this is the first thing you want to handle. In particular, the scouting director is going to be hugely important for setting up the rest of your team. So in the next video, we're going to handle probably finances, since getting your finances in order will be critical to building your organization your way. And if you're more interested into a deeper dive into each staff and what it does, I will link some videos in the description that I made regarding those. So I hope this was helpful to you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.